Today, we're going to witness a kind of financial alchemy. We're going to trace the absolutely incredible journey of a single home mortgage as it gets bundled, sliced up, and transformed into a complex security that's traded on markets all over the world. This whole process is called securitization.
It really all comes down to this one big question. How in the world does something so familiar, so normal, a home loan, get turned into some abstract financial product you'd see on Wall Street? Well, the answer to that really pulls back the curtain on the hidden machinery of modern finance.
Okay, so our story doesn't start on a chaotic trading floor. Nope, it begins somewhere way more familiar, a local bank branch processing a single home loan.
So think about it. When you get a mortgage, the bank hands you a big pile of cash to buy a house. And from the bank's point of view, that loan is now an asset sitting on their books. It's a promise that you'll be making payments with interest for years to come.
Sounds like a pretty good business, right? The bank just sits back and collects interest over time. But actually, holding on to that single loan creates two major headaches for the bank.
First off, their money is locked up, sometimes for 30 years. That's what we call liquidity risk. Second, they've placed a huge bet on one single person's ability to pay them back. That's concentration risk. If that one homeowner defaults, the bank feels that pain directly. So here's the crucial takeaway. The bank loves making loans, but it doesn't really want to hold on to all that risk.
And this, my friends, is where Wall Street steps in with the first major transformation in our story, creating something called a mortgage-backed security, or MBS for short.
You gotta love this motto, right? It just perfectly captures the whole mindset. Just like the local banks, these big investment banks don't want to just store loans on their books. No way. They're in the business of buying them, repackaging all that risk, and then selling them on. Keep it moving.
So, an investment bank swoops in and buys up not just one, but thousands of these mortgages from local banks all across the country. And just like that, the local bank's problem is solved. They get their cash back right away and are free to go out and make even more loans.
Now, the investment bank doesn't just hold these loans itself. It gets clever. It creates a brand new, totally separate company, a special purpose entity, or SPE. Think of it like a container or a safety deposit box. All those thousands of mortgages get placed inside this SPE, which isolates them completely from the bank's own finances.
Let's use an example just to see the sheer scale of this. Imagine our little special purpose entity is now holding 1,000 individual mortgages. And just to keep the math simple, let's say each and every one of those mortgages is for a cool $1 million.
Which means our SPE is now holding a portfolio of loans worth a grand total of $1 billion. By bundling them all together, the risk of any single homeowner defaulting is now just a tiny drop in a massive ocean. That concentration risk we talked about? It's been diversified away.
The investment bank then turns around and sells shares, or securities, in this billion-dollar pool of loans. And that is the mortgage-backed security. Investors who buy an MBS are essentially buying a tiny piece of thousands of different mortgages, and they get a slice of the total mortgage payments that come in every month. And this brilliantly solves the problem. Those illiquid mortgages are now aliquid, easily tradable securities.
But of course, solving one problem often creates a new one. The MBS is a one-size-fits-all kind of product. And believe me, not all investors have the same appetite for risk.
On one hand, you have a conservative pension fund. They might look at this MBS and say, whoa, that's a little too risky for us. What if a lot of people default? But then a high-risk hedge fund might look at the exact same MBS and say, yawn, this is too boring. The returns just aren't high enough. So how can you possibly sell the same product to both of them?
Well, the short answer is you can't. So Wall Street performs a second transformation, one that lets them tailor the risk for everybody. They take the entire mortgage-backed security and they slice it into different pieces.
This new product is called a collateralized debt obligation, or a CDO. The idea is pretty simple, actually. You take that single, big river of cash flowing in from all the mortgage payments, and you carve it up into different streams, or tranches. And each of these tranches has its own specific risk and reward profile.
So, there are typically three main tranches. You have the senior tranche, which is the safest because it gets paid first. Then there's the mezzanine tranche, right there in the middle. And finally, you've got the equity tranche. This one is the riskiest of all. It only gets paid after every single other person has been paid in full. It's designed to take the first hit from any losses.
So to fund our billion-dollar mortgage pool, the bank might sell, let's say, $400 million worth of those senior notes, promising a safe 6% return. Then, $300 million of the mezzanine notes at 7%, and finally $300 million of the high-risk equity notes, which could potentially earn a whopping 16.5% return. And just like that, there's a product for every type of investor.
So how does the money actually flow to these different investors? The system is designed like a waterfall, with cash cascading from the top, safest tranche, all the way down to the bottom. Let's see how it plays out in practice.
Okay, in a perfect world, every single homeowner makes their payment. Let's say that's $100 million a year. The senior tranche gets its promised $24 million. The mezzanine tranche gets its $21 million. And the equity tranche, they get all the rest, a massive $55 million. High risk, but wow, what a high reward.
But what happens if some people default and only $90 million comes in? This is where the waterfall structure protects the folks at the top. Senior investors still get their full $24 million. Mezzanine investors still get their full $21 million. The equity tranche absorbs the entire $10 million loss, receiving only $45 million.
Now let's look at a really severe scenario where defaults are high and only $50 million comes in. The structure is truly put to the test. The senior and mezzanine investors still get paid first, receiving their full amounts. But now only $5 million is left over for the equity investors. Their huge potential return has completely evaporated. Their investment is almost totally wiped out, which perfectly illustrates their high-risk position. So you see, securitization is an incredibly powerful financial tool. It takes the risk from a single loan, spreads it across thousands, and then slices that risk into customized pieces for different investors. It moves risk from those who don't want it to those who do. But, and this is the big but, the entire structure is built on assumptions about how many people will default. Which leaves us with a final crucial question. What happens when those assumptions are catastrophically wrong?